Have you ever wondered if there's a party going on in your prefrontal cortex? And if there is, who are the DJs? Who are the people, the partiers, basically? Well, today we're going to be talking about how the party in your prefrontal cortex helps you to get clarity. This is Arthur Carmazzi, best-selling author and currently ranked as one of the world's top 10 thought leaders in organizational culture and leadership. And today, welcome to Where's Your Brain? So let's see what's going on. Now, you may have gone into a club at one particular point, and in front of a club, what do you usually find? You find a bouncer. Well, for today's lesson, basically the bouncer is the COMT gene, C-O-M-T gene. Now, just like any bouncer, he's going to let people in and he's not going to let people in. He's going to decide which people get let in to the party. And of course, this is the clarity party, because in this part of the prefrontal cortex that is essentially responsible for all of the reasoning and thinking and creativity and all of the things that are going, including inhibition of behaviors, which means that it's going to stop you from jumping up on the table and dancing around naked, okay, because it's uncool. Okay, well, I guess it depends on where you are, but in normal circumstances, you're not going to go up in front of your boss and you're not going to lick him with your tongue because it's uncool. So inhibition of behaviors is what goes on in the prefrontal cortex, as well as actual thinking, planning, and a whole bunch of really other cool stuff. But in order for this to happen, okay, and in order for you to get clarity within the prefrontal cortex, there's a few things that must happen first. And the COMT gene, the bouncer, is the one that is regulating the boys and girls, or in this particular case, the catecholamine neurotransmitters, okay? And so if we think of dopamine, let's think of dopamine as the girls, okay? So dopamine is DA, abbreviation. Now, norepinephrine, another neurotransmitter in the prefrontal cortex that affects clarity getting, is the boys, okay? The boy partiers. Now, the boy partiers and the girl partiers, they're trying to get into the club, right? But the bouncer decides who he's going to let in. Sometimes the bouncer lets more girls into the club because he likes girls. Okay, sometimes the bouncer lets more boys into the club because he likes boys. I'm not judging, I'm just saying. All right? And of course, sometimes the bouncer likes both boys and girls. Okay, again, I'm not judging, just saying. So, what happens is that as he regulates these neurotransmitters, partiers, going into the club, then what ends up happening is that once they're in the club, then you got the ushers. Now the ushers, they're the ones that basically determine the number of seats in the club. All right? Now, of course, the DJs are fighting against each other. The abstract DJ is fighting against the concrete DJ because each one wants to play their songs. Now, depending on the mix, how many seats versus also what kind of boys and girls, or how many boys and girls, or how many more men or how many more women are going into the club based on the COMT gene, that is going to determine the process of how you get clarity in the prefrontal cortex. Remember, the prefrontal cortex is about thinking and planning and reasoning and everything else, right? So, if we are going to get aware of our clarity getting process, or what is called the ambiguity relief process, and how our genes affect it, well, we got to know, first of all, the ushers are also called gene receptors. And in this particular case, because they are receiving the norepinephrine, okay, the boys, and the dopamine, the girls, okay, these gene receptors are DRD type receptors, all right? Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means that basically, if you get a lot of people coming in, okay, these guys, the ushers, have to make some more space for them, right? Because there's, the bouncer's the one that determines how many and who gets in. So the ushers make sure that there is space. And of course, if there's too many seats, okay, the ushers are going to take away some seats. So the moment that the partiers come down and actually get into the seats, that gives them a greater opportunity to hook up. Well, that means that basically now there is an electrical spark. Pow! Okay, and now they're excited and they are sending some electrical signals that basically help to give you more clarity. Now let's look at the different types of processes that happen in this prefrontal cortex area. So we've got, remember, if you haven't read or watched or any of the videos or anything like that about the colored brain, we're just going to go briefly through that, all right? So the first brain color is the red brain, okay? And of course the red brain process, which is linear processing, okay? They let in, or the bouncer, he's going to let more men and women in at the same time, okay? Now of course, the ushers have lots of seats, so it's okay. So he's going to get lots of men, lots of women, they're all in there, and they are all now inside of the club having a good time. But because they are doing all that, now what you got is you got the concrete DJ, basically meaning that things are more factual, more structured, okay? This guy is the one that's playing because that's the preference of this mix. Okay? But now let's go into the purple brain. Okay? So now the purple brain guy, he lets in more women than men. Okay? So he lets in more women than men. Okay? And there's not as many seats as there is in the red brain, but there's enough. There's just kind of like an average amount of seats. And of course, in this particular case, also the concrete DJ is in charge. He's making sure that things are details that are, put together, that all of this stuff is coming together. Okay. Now, of course, with the green brain, okay, with the green brain, okay, he lets in more men than women, okay? So the comp gene, or the bouncer, lets in more men than women. So, okay, this guy likes boys, all right? So what does this mean? It means that the usher also has lots of seats, so they can all come in, and of course there's going to be more men than women. And of course that means that the DJ is going to be the abstract DJ, and the abstract DJ is going to take control. So with the blue brain, he lets the same amount of men and women in, but it's less of both. Okay? So less men and women, and of course there are only a few seats in the club, so they all kind of get together, and it's pretty cool. Now, of course, this also lets the abstract DJ win with this kind of mix. Okay, so what does this all mean? Okay, let's do a recap. First of all, comp gene, bouncer, regulates the neurotransmitters, partiers, okay, to come into the club, prefrontal cortex. Now, depending on how many seats are available and the mix, they're going to have either the abstract DJ play, which means that your process of getting clarity is more abstract, or they're going to let the concrete DJ play, which means that your process of getting clarity is less abstract, more concrete. And of course, the ushers also have a part in this because they determine the amount of seats that are available. So hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what goes on and how you get more clarity to think and plan and create in the prefrontal cortex using the genetic ambiguity relief clarity getting processes. This is Arthur Carmazzi wishing you great success.